The rain had been falling for hours. Long streaks of water slid across the windshield of a black SUV, moving steadily down a quiet Virginia highway. Most drivers had already gone home. The roads were nearly empty. But Special Agent Danielle Carter was still working. She checked the dashboard clock. 11:47 p.m., almost midnight. She rubbed her tired eyes and focused on the road ahead. It had been a long day. Actually, a long 6 months. Danielle wasn't just any FBI agent. She was the lead investigator on one of the largest organized crime investigations in the region. For months, her team had been tracking a criminal network involved in fraud, money laundering, and violent intimidation. The operation stretched across multiple states. Hundreds of thousands of pages of evidence had been collected. Dozens of suspects were under surveillance. And tonight, Danielle had received information that could finally break the case wide open. She had spent the evening meeting with a confidential informant. The meeting had been risky. The informant was terrified. For weeks, he had refused to cooperate. Tonight was different. Tonight, he talked. And what he revealed could send several powerful criminals to prison for decades. Danielle glanced toward the locked briefcase resting on the passenger seat. Inside were documents, photographs, financial records, evidence. Evidence that many dangerous people would pay millions of dollars to destroy. She needed to get back to the FBI field office. Nothing else mattered. Unfortunately, someone else had different plans. 10 miles away, Officer Tyler Grant sat inside his patrol car. His shift had been terrible. 2 years earlier, Tyler believed he was destined for greatness, promotion, recognition, respect. None of those things had happened. Instead, he remained a patrol officer. And lately, his frustration had become obvious. His supervisors noticed. His fellow officers noticed. Even citizens noticed. Tyler had developed a reputation. Not for good police work, not for professionalism, for arrogance. He enjoyed reminding people that he had authority, and tonight, he was looking for an opportunity to use it. The highway was quiet. Too quiet. Then he noticed headlights approaching, a black SUV, driving exactly at the speed limit, nothing unusual. Yet Tyler continued watching. The vehicle passed. His eyes narrowed. Something about it caught his attention. Maybe it was the government-style antenna. Maybe it was the tinted windows. Maybe he was simply bored. Whatever the reason, he pulled out behind it. Danielle noticed the patrol car almost immediately. She checked her mirrors. The cruiser stayed behind her for nearly a mile, then 2, then 3. Danielle sighed. She knew the pattern. The officer was looking for a reason to stop her. Unfortunately for him, she wasn't giving him one. Speed limit, turn signals, lane discipline, everything perfect. Then suddenly, red and blue lights flashed. Danielle blinked. Seriously? She carefully pulled onto the shoulder. Rain continued falling. Traffic passed occasionally, otherwise, the road was empty. She turned on the interior light, placed both hands on the steering wheel, and waited. Officer Grant stepped out. Rain soaked his uniform. His flashlight beam immediately hit the driver's window. Danielle rolled it down slightly. Good evening, officer. Tyler didn't answer. License and registration. Danielle calmly handed them over. The officer examined them, then looked at her, then back at the documents. Where are you going? Danielle kept her voice polite. Home. From where? Work. What kind of work? Danielle hesitated. She preferred not discussing investigations. Government work. Tyler smirked. Government work? Yes. The officer leaned closer. What kind? Danielle already sensed where this conversation was heading. Federal. Tyler's smile grew wider. Federal. That's correct. For some reason, that answer seemed to annoy him. Several minutes passed. The questions continued. Where had she been? Who had she met? Why was she traveling so late? Why was she alone? The questions became increasingly aggressive. Finally, Danielle asked, Officer, may I ask why I was stopped? Tyler looked at her. You crossed the fog line. Danielle frowned. No, I didn't. The officer's expression hardened immediately. So now you're arguing with me? No. You just called me a liar. I didn't. The tension grew. Danielle remained calm. Years in law enforcement had taught her patience. But she was beginning to realize this stop wasn't about traffic enforcement. It was becoming personal. Then Tyler's flashlight landed on something inside the vehicle. A secure, encrypted communications device mounted near the center console. His eyes narrowed. What's that? Danielle followed his gaze. Government equipment, the officer laughed. Sure, it's authorized equipment. Tyler continued staring. Step out of the vehicle. Danielle blinked. Excuse me? You heard me. She carefully opened the door. Rain soaked her jacket immediately. The officer circled the SUV, examining everything, searching for something suspicious, anything suspicious. But there was nothing. Then he spotted the locked briefcase, the one containing evidence from the investigation. What is that? Danielle looked toward the passenger seat. A work case. Open it. No. The officer stared at her. What did you say? Danielle's voice remained calm. The contents are protected. Tyler laughed again. Protected? Yes. By who? The federal government. The officer rolled his eyes. At this point, he was convinced she was lying. For Danielle, the situation was becoming dangerous. Not because she feared the officer, because she feared delay. The evidence needed to reach the field office. Every unnecessary minute increased risk, and Tyler was wasting plenty of minutes. Open the briefcase. I can't. Can't or won't? Both. The officer stepped closer. Rain dripped from his hat. His frustration was obvious. You expect me to believe you're some kind of federal agent? Danielle sighed. No. What? I don't expect you to believe me. The officer frowned. Then what? I expect you to verify it. Silence. Then Tyler laughed. Again, louder this time. The sound echoed across the empty highway. Danielle slowly reached toward her jacket pocket. Officer, I can show you my credentials. The moment her hand moved, everything changed. Tyler stepped backward. His hand flew toward his weapon. Don't move! Danielle froze instantly. What are you doing? The officer pulled his handgun. Rain continued falling. The highway became silent. Passing vehicles slowed. Drivers stared. A gun was now pointed directly at her. Danielle couldn't believe it. Years with the FBI, dangerous investigations, armed raids, hostile suspects. And now she had a local officer aiming a weapon at her because she reached for identification. Slowly, she raised both hands. I'm getting my credentials. Don't move. Officer, I said don't move. The situation had become extremely serious. Finally, Tyler allowed her to retrieve the badge. Carefully, slowly, Danielle removed her credentials, held them up. The gold FBI shield reflected against the flashing patrol lights. For a moment, she expected the situation to end. Any reasonable officer would immediately verify the identification. Instead, Tyler laughed. Actually laughed. A third time. You expect me to believe that? Danielle stared at him. It's real. Sure it is. Run the identification. The officer shook his head. Nice fake badge. Danielle couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then something happened that Tyler didn't notice. Something small. Something hidden. The emergency sensor inside Danielle's communications device had activated the moment a firearm was pointed at her. A silent signal, automatic, encrypted, invisible. And 60 miles away, inside an FBI field office, a computer screen suddenly turned red. An alert appeared. Agent in distress. The room instantly became silent, and people started moving. Fast. Inside the FBI field office, the alert immediately grabbed everyone's attention. A large red warning flashed across multiple screens. Agent in distress. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Reynolds stood up. What happened? An analyst quickly checked the system. Emergency signal from Agent Danielle Carter. The room instantly became silent. Several agents exchanged worried looks. Danielle Carter wasn't a rookie. She wasn't careless. And she certainly wasn't the type to accidentally trigger an emergency alert. If her distress beacon was active, something serious had happened. Location. The analyst pointed to the screen. A blinking marker appeared on a map. State Route 17, outside Richmond. Reynolds frowned. Status? The analyst typed rapidly. No communication from the agent. The room grew tense. That was bad. Very bad. The emergency beacon only activated under specific circumstances. One of those circumstances involved a weapon being pointed at an FBI agent. Marcus Reynolds immediately grabbed his jacket. Let's move. Within seconds, federal agents were heading for their vehicles. Meanwhile, on the highway, Officer Tyler Grant remained convinced he was in control. Rain continued falling. Danielle Carter stood beside her SUV with her hands visible. The FBI credentials were still in her hand. Tyler looked at them again, then laughed. I've seen fake badges before. Danielle remained calm. Then verify it. The officer shook his head. No. Danielle blinked. What? I said no. The answer shocked her. Most officers would immediately verify federal credentials. Instead, Tyler appeared determined to prove her wrong. Officer, call dispatch. No. Run my name. No. Danielle stared at him. The situation was becoming absurd and dangerous. Backup lights appeared in the distance. Another police vehicle arrived. Officer Jason Miller stepped out. Unlike Tyler, Jason was known for being professional. He immediately sensed tension. What happened? Tyler pointed toward Danielle. Possible impersonation. Jason looked confused. Impersonation? Claims she's FBI. Jason glanced at Danielle, then at the badge, then back at Tyler. Did you verify it? Tyler remained silent. Jason frowned. You didn't. The answer told him everything. Danielle spoke calmly. My credentials are real. Jason stepped closer. May I see them? Tyler immediately interrupted. Don't bother. Jason looked at him. Why not? Because they're fake. The second officer's expression changed. How do you know? Tyler hesitated. Because he didn't know. Not really. He had simply decided they were fake. For the first time, Jason started questioning his partner's judgment. The situation wasn't making sense. At all. Back at the FBI field office, multiple vehicles raced toward the alert location. Marcus Reynolds sat in the lead SUV. His phone rang. He answered immediately. What do we have? An analyst spoke quickly. We identified the officer involved. Who? Tyler Grant. Reynolds listened carefully. Anything else? A pause. Then, several prior complaints. The supervisor frowned. What kind of complaints? Unnecessary force, aggressive conduct, escalation. The atmosphere inside the SUV became heavier. None of those complaints had resulted in termination, but together they painted a picture, a troubling one. Back on the roadside, Tyler continued questioning Danielle. The questions were no longer about traffic, or driving, or public safety. Now they felt personal. Why are you really here? I told you. What investigation? I can't discuss that. Convenient, Danielle sighed. The officer seemed determined to treat every answer as suspicious, no matter what she said. Officer Jason Miller finally stepped away and called dispatch himself, quietly, away from Tyler. Run a federal credential verification. The dispatcher hesitated. Federal? Yes. Jason waited. Several seconds passed. Then the dispatcher returned. Her voice sounded surprised. Officer Miller? Go ahead. The credentials are valid. Jason froze. Confirmed? Confirmed. The dispatcher paused, then added, She's a special agent with the FBI. Jason slowly lowered the radio. His stomach dropped. Because everything changed at that moment. Everything. Back near the vehicles, Tyler was still talking. Still convinced he was right. Still refusing to listen. Jason walked toward him. Tyler. What? We need to talk. The officer sounded irritated. What now? Jason lowered his voice. The credentials are real. Silence. Tyler stared at him. What? They're real. The officer laughed. Nice joke. I'm serious. The smile disappeared. For the first time all night, uncertainty appeared on Tyler's face. Then flashing headlights appeared in the distance. Several vehicles, moving fast, very fast. Jason looked toward the road. His eyes widened. Oh no. Tyler turned around. What? The second officer pointed. A convoy of black SUVs was approaching. Fast. Purposefully. And there were a lot of them. Danielle already knew what was happening. The emergency beacon. The FBI response. She had seen it before, just never from this side of the situation. The black SUVs stopped. Doors opened. Agents stepped out. Rain soaked their jackets. Nobody appeared angry. Nobody shouted. But their expressions were serious. Very serious. Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Reynolds emerged from the lead vehicle. He immediately spotted Danielle. Agent Carter? Danielle nodded. I'm fine. Reynolds looked relieved. Then he looked toward Tyler. The mood instantly changed. Officer Grant suddenly realized he was standing in front of nearly a dozen federal agents. Every one of them focused on him. The confidence he had shown earlier began disappearing. Quickly. Marcus Reynolds walked forward. "Officer," Tyler cleared his throat. "Yes? Why was my agent stopped?" The officer hesitated. "Traffic violation." "Which one?" Tyler opened his mouth, then closed it. Because suddenly, he wasn't sure anymore. Not with everyone watching. Jason Miller quietly stepped aside. He knew exactly where this was going, and it wasn't good. Then Reynolds asked another question, one much more important. "Why was your weapon drawn?" The highway became silent. Rain continued falling. Tyler looked around. Every eye was on him. The FBI agents, the officers, Danielle, everyone. And for the first time all night, he didn't have a good answer. Then an FBI technician approached Reynolds holding a tablet. "Sir, what is it?" "We've reviewed preliminary body camera footage." Reynolds looked at the screen. His expression darkened immediately. The footage showed Danielle cooperating, being respectful, following instructions. And yet the situation continued escalating, again and again and again. The evidence wasn't helping Tyler, not even a little. But the biggest shock came seconds later. The technician paused the video, zoomed in, and pointed toward something inside Danielle's SUV, a photograph, one Tyler had completely overlooked. Reynolds stared at it, then looked toward Danielle. "Agent Carter." Danielle immediately recognized the image, and her face changed. Because the photograph wasn't supposed to be visible. Not to anyone. Not yet. The image showed one of the primary suspects from the ongoing federal investigation. A suspect who had connections far beyond organized crime. Connections reaching into local government, local business, and possibly local law enforcement. Reynolds slowly looked toward Tyler Grant. For the first time that night, a disturbing possibility entered his mind. What if this traffic stop wasn't random? What if someone knew exactly who Danielle Carter was and exactly what she was carrying? Because if that was true, the situation had just become much bigger than a bad traffic stop. Much, much bigger. The rain continued falling. Nobody spoke. Everyone was staring at the photograph displayed on the FBI technician's tablet. Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Reynolds looked from the image to Danielle Carter, then back again. His expression grew serious, very serious. Because the man in the photograph wasn't just another suspect. He was one of the primary targets of a federal investigation that had consumed months of work. The kind of investigation that changed careers. The kind of investigation that put people in prison for decades. And now his image had unexpectedly appeared in the middle of a roadside traffic stop. Something wasn't right. Danielle stepped closer. "How did that photo become visible?" The technician shook his head. "It must have slipped from the evidence folder." Reynolds looked thoughtful. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then he turned toward Officer Tyler Grant. "Officer, have you ever seen this man before?" Tyler glanced at the photograph. For a fraction of a second, his expression changed. A tiny reaction, small, almost invisible. But Danielle noticed it immediately. So did Reynolds. The officer quickly looked away. "Never." Danielle didn't believe him. Neither did Reynolds. The supervisor's instincts were screaming. Something was wrong, very wrong. And the more he looked at Tyler Grant, the more uncomfortable he became. Meanwhile, another FBI analyst called Reynolds. He answered immediately. "What do you have?" The analyst spoke quickly. "Sir, we found something." "Go ahead." "We ran Officer Grant's phone records." Reynolds frowned. "Why?" "Because his name appeared in a contact network connected to our investigation." The supervisor froze. The highway suddenly felt much quieter. "What did you find?" The analyst took a breath. "Several calls to individuals under federal surveillance." Danielle's eyes widened. The atmosphere changed instantly. Now everyone understood. This might not have been a simple traffic stop. It might not have been bad judgment. It might not even have been misconduct. It could be something much worse. Officer Grant suddenly looked nervous. For the first time that night, he understood the direction of the investigation. And he didn't like it. Not one bit. Reynolds lowered the phone, then looked directly at Tyler. "Officer." Tyler swallowed. "Yes? Have you had contact with Michael Vance?" The officer froze. The name hit him like a punch. Because Michael Vance wasn't just anyone. He was the leader of the criminal organization Danielle had spent 6 months investigating. Silence. Complete silence. the kind of silence that makes everyone uncomfortable. Tyler looked away. That was enough. Everyone saw it. Danielle crossed her arms. Interesting. The officer remained silent. Reynolds spoke again. This is your opportunity to tell the truth. Tyler looked around. The FBI agents, the police officers, the flashing lights, the rain, the cameras. Everything suddenly felt very real and very dangerous. Finally, he spoke. I didn't know everything. Nobody responded. The officer continued. I only knew what they told me. Danielle's expression hardened. Who? Tyler closed his eyes. For a moment, he looked defeated. Then he answered, Michael Vance. The words hung in the air. Everything suddenly made sense. The traffic stop, the refusal to verify credentials, the aggressive behavior, the drawn weapon, the unnecessary detention. Someone wanted Danielle delayed. Someone wanted the evidence delayed. Someone wanted the investigation disrupted. And Tyler Grant had helped them, whether he fully understood it or not. Several agents immediately began making calls. The situation had transformed from an internal misconduct issue into an active federal operation. Then another call arrived, this time from FBI headquarters. The analyst sounded excited. Sir, what happened? We intercepted communications. Reynolds listened carefully. The analyst continued. The criminal organization believes Agent Carter was stopped successfully. Danielle frowned. What does that mean? The analyst answered. They think the evidence never reached the field office. A slow smile appeared on Reynolds' face. Because that meant one thing. The suspects felt safe. And when criminals feel safe, they make mistakes. Danielle immediately understood. For 6 months, the organization had avoided exposure. Now they believed the investigation had been disrupted, which meant they might finally reveal themselves. Within minutes, a plan formed. Danielle would continue to the field office. The evidence would be secured. Meanwhile, surveillance teams would monitor every suspect connected to Michael Vance. The operation began before sunrise. Federal agents moved quietly, patiently, watching, waiting. Then, exactly as expected, the suspects started communicating. Phones, messages, meetings, movements. Every action created more evidence, more mistakes, more opportunities. 3 days later, the FBI launched coordinated raids across multiple locations. The operation was enormous. Agents moved simultaneously. Homes, offices, warehouses, businesses. Every target hit at the same time. The criminal network collapsed almost overnight. Michael Vance was arrested before sunrise. The once powerful crime boss looked shocked. For years, he had operated in the shadows, protected by money, protected by fear, protected by corruption. Now he sat in handcuffs, watching federal agents carry away boxes of evidence. News spread rapidly. Television stations interrupted programming. Headlines appeared everywhere. One of the largest criminal organizations in the region had been dismantled. And the operation's success was directly connected to the evidence Danielle had protected. Meanwhile, investigators continued examining Officer Grant's role. The results weren't good. Body camera footage, phone records, financial transactions, witness statements. Everything painted the same picture. A police officer who abused his authority and compromised public trust. Weeks later, Tyler Grant entered a federal courtroom. This time, he wasn't carrying a badge. He wasn't giving orders. He wasn't stopping drivers. He was the defendant. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Misconduct, false detention, abuse of authority, obstruction of a federal investigation. The courtroom remained silent as the judge reviewed the findings. Danielle sat quietly in the gallery. She wasn't there for revenge. She wasn't there to celebrate. She was there because accountability mattered. The same law applied to everyone. Citizens, criminals, agents, officers, everyone. After the hearing ended, reporters gathered outside the courthouse. Cameras pointed toward Danielle. Questions came immediately. Agent Carter, how did you stay calm during the traffic stop? Another reporter shouted, Were you afraid? Danielle paused, then smiled slightly. Not for myself. The reporters looked confused. She continued, I was worried about the investigation. Another question followed. What's the biggest lesson from this experience? Danielle thought for a moment, then answered, Authority is a responsibility, not a privilege. The crowd became quiet. She continued, The moment someone forgets that, they stop serving the public and start serving themselves. Several reporters wrote the quote down immediately. Months later, the FBI operation became a training case. New agents studied it, law enforcement agencies discussed it, and one lesson appeared again and again. Never assume, never let ego control decisions, and never underestimate the person standing in front of you. Because on one rainy night, one officer looked at a black woman and assumed she was lying. He laughed at her badge, he pointed a gun at her, and he ignored every opportunity to do the right thing. 2 minutes later, his life started falling apart. And by the time the truth emerged, the biggest mistake of his career had already been made. The end.